And I hear the first officer call out. And then the first officer jumps on the radio and he screams, "Holy shit, it's the goat man." And I mean, it's just like everything went quiet. And I could hear the ringing in my ears, and I could feel my heart race. And so I hit my lights and I went flying up there.
I've been told by some older people, elders, that you grab them and you hold them and you don't own them, but you hold them there until daylight. If you can hold them or pull them into the light, it destroys anything they have, any kind of power, anything they were trying to do to you. It'll destroy them.
This guy was like bouncing, like, like how you see people kind of getting ready to jig. You know how they kind of bounce? Yeah, he was like that way. He was just kind of bouncing, and he was just kind of going back and forth on one foot to the other. And he just kind of turned sideways, and he turned back over to the other way, and he took off. Holy shit, he jumped in Wanda.
This is Lodge Tales. I'm your host, Rod Williamson, and thanks again for joining us on another episode. If you are Native American and you'd like to come on the show to share your strange and paranormal experiences, please consider emailing us at lodgetales@gmail.com. Alright, we're back at it again, folks. This week we have Dorian Cummins. He's a Pawnee, and I've been in contact with him for a while now, and we talk about some stories with Bigfoot. He tells his stories, I tell one of mine, and toward the end there we talk about, these landmarks that the Blackfeet have, and a little about iniskims and stuff. So that's a pretty good episode, and sorry for the delay on this one being released. I had some scheduling issues pop up and a lot of work, real life stuff kind of got in the way. But here we are. So let's go ahead and get into it with Dorian. Alright, welcome back to Lodge Tales, everyone. Tonight we got Dorian with us, and he's going to share some stories about Bigfoot and some other things probably here. So I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Dorian.
Hey, how you doing tonight, Rod?
Doing good.
I'm actually excited to do this. It's an honor, and I'm humbled, and I'm just excited to be here.
Hell yeah. Good. Well, it's good to have you.
Yeah. So I'd like to preface this first. I am the definition of a concrete Indian. Okay. So I'll just be honest about that. I'm really removed from my culture. I was raised in New Orleans, and my only knowledge of the culture was going to the old powwow, the homecoming, but it's at the ball field in Pawnee. It's not really, I don't get a wealth of knowledge by going to it, if you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So being the concrete Indian I am, during the summers, when I was a boy, say, between the ages of like 8 and 13, I had a cousin, and he lived about 2 hours north. And so I would spend time in the country, not in the city. And we would kind of trounce around and shoot a shotgun and try to hunt squirrels and things of that nature. All the things boys do in the country, right?
Yeah.
So that's the extent of my hunting knowledge, right? So fast forward, we get to high school, and I have a friend of mine. His name's Derek, and he was a big hunter. And him and his father used to go. There's this place. It's in State Line, Mississippi, and it's Derek's father's friend. He owned a bunch of land up there, so we didn't need like tags or anything. It was just he let us hunt on his property. So I talked him into taking me one year, and I convinced him I was a good hunter. I convinced myself I was a good hunter, but anyway, so I could talk myself into going on a hunting trip. So we go to State Line, Mississippi. Now, the very first night we got there, okay, so you know how a lot of these big guy stories, you always hear like something happened years past in their memory. They didn't know that was the big guy involved until they hear like, oh, I didn't know he made those noises, or they throw rocks, or the smells, or what have you. But once you get a little bit of knowledge, you're like, oh wow, that's what that was, right?
Yeah.
So kind of that kind of comes into this story. So the very first night, we're shining for rabbits, and there's this creek that ran through the property. So we're kind of hugging the creek and shining. So we started hearing these splashes, these gawoosh, and it was kind of heavy objects hitting the water.
Yeah.
So I asked my friend Derek, I said, what, are those deer? Like, I thought we were kind of like just jumping deer. This is where my mind was. I thought the deer were jumping in the river, getting away from us. So I asked him, I was like, are those deer? And he's like, no. But he didn't look too sure of himself either. So I was kind of like getting a little nervous.
Yeah.
So we will keep walking up, and there's another couple spalooshes, right?
Mm.
And so I'm like, what is that? And he didn't have an answer. He's like, I don't know. So I was like, man, so I was starting to hit the panic button. And then Rod, right behind me, a big splash, boosh, right? And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we just hightailed it right back to the cabin. I don't know. I still to this day, didn't see anything, you know. That's all I heard was the splashes. But keep that in your pocket, because the hunting trip gets crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, we do the morning hunt, and didn't really see anything or anything. But as we're coming back to the cabin, and it's like, I don't know, around noonish, something jumps in front of the truck. And it happened real fast. So we're going down this little dirt road. There was a barbed wire fence to our right. And it was like something ran, but it made a leap, hit the road, and then another bound, and like it took off. But like I said, it happened so fast. Oh. My buddy Derek hits the brakes, and we lock up, and we come to a stop, and we just kind of stared at each other like, and it was a massive object, by the way. I mean, it was huge. It was like our kind of, how would I put it? I would relate it to, it was about as wide as the truck.
Oh.
But it kind of seemed like it was like long ways, like not coming at us, right? Mm-hmm. But it was tall too. But if I had to guess, it was on all fours, whatever it was, and it had so it leaps, right, and it's out of there. He comes to the stop. We're both staring at each other like, man, that was, what the heck, you know? And so we go to the cabin. Now the gentleman's property that we're hunting on, we'll call him Bob. Mm-hmm. Bob shows up, and we're still excited about what just happened. And he's like, well, what's going on? And so we kind of told him. Now we're not even thinking about the night before with the splashes and stuff. So we were all excited, and we told him what it was. Now he was really dismissive. Like right away, he was like, "Oh, that was an old timber wolf." And and I mean, I'm not the biggest hunter in the world, but that wasn't a wolf. I mean, it was huge. And he starts kind of thinking, and he's like, well, what color was it? And I said, it was kind of like the color of the butt of your gun. It was like that stain, kind of like that cherry hardwood, kind of like a brownish red. Uh-huh. So when I said that to him, he kind of looked at me weird, And he still just shook his head. It was like, oh, Timberwolf. But I got a weird feeling that he wasn't saying something, right?
Yeah.
You know, it like he wanted to for a second, and then he thought better about it, you know, like, oh, I thought he was about to say something, but he didn't. So this is where the story gets weird. Now, I'm not saying it's related to any of this or Biggie or whatever, but the guy's wife ends up being found murdered like 6 months later, like shot execution style in the back of the head.
Oh,
Like
geez.
the weirdest story you ever hear in your life, right?
Mhm.
And they're blaming this guy Bob, and he's still never been found. He's on the FBI most wanted list. Now, his 2,000 acres butted up to like a national park or wildlife center or whatever.
Mhm.
And since this was like a weird murder investigation, well, the state ended up getting the land, and they kind of so. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying A plus B equals C, but it's a weird story, right?
Yeah.
And even at the funeral, like my friend's mother said it was like military guarded, and it was just weird. And I mean, I don't know what you make of that, but it makes a weird story. And like some people say, weirdness tends to follow other weirdness, right?
Yeah.
But looking back at it, you know, Rod, you hear the splashes.
Mhm.
If I had to guess, I'd probably think they were aggravated with us going through there and throwing stuff. And then, like, maybe he jumped in front of the truck the next day as we were going back. You know, these are all speculations and that, but when I look back on it, you know, hindsight's 2020, and I wish I would have had a little more knowledge then than as I do now. You know, I would have went at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's really strange. I wonder if there is a connection. I wonder what it would be. You know.
Right. Like, what would he be on? Was he on the good side, the bad side, or did he not know anything at all? Or what the heck?
Yeah, that's a strange one, man. I wonder. Wow.
I don't know. And the lady was the nicest lady. I mean, I can't imagine of what or how. And the fact that he's still, to this day, Rod, never been found. Now, they said he killed her because he wanted the land or something. But why would he leave and never try? You know, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah. Huh. I wonder if I wonder if that Bigfoot had something to do with his disappearance.
or yeah. Or did he know something?
Yeah, did they silence them all? I mean, what the... You know, because we can go down a conspiracy way, too, and, you know, if you open that book, there's a lot of, you know, crazy things that have happened to people that are, you know, witnesses, and they, I don't know, they dig too much, they find out too much, whatever it is, and, you know, you'll hear all these stories if you dig into it more that, well, people being kind of silenced, threatened, you know, don't talk about this anymore. You know,
right.
There's a lot of stories like that.
Yeah, his name will always be Bob. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't want anything ever coming back on me.
Yeah, that's a strange one, man. Jeez, what happened to that land? The state owns it now?
Yeah, or the or if it was like a U.S. you know fish and wildlife game like place or something. Or it's a I don't know if it's a national or a state park, but whatever it is, they accumulated it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do that, man.
Yeah, that is a strange one. Huh. Jeez, we may never know what the hell happened there.
No. But I tell you what, if now that I'm looking back on it, I mean, something was throwing rocks at us or boulders or whatever. There wasn't, you know, those splat when stuff makes a splash and you you hear that void and then
Mm-hmm.
nothing, and then you'll hear it come back down. Well, that's what I mean, it was weighted objects, whatever it was.
And how long
But
did
the
they live
last one
there?
behind,
Oh,
I don't know. Oh, they lived there, forever because I would always hear about his hunting stories. He was a good friend of mine, this guy Derek, and he would always tell me stories as growing up, like, and he would show me his first deer and this and that, like, and they were all at this land.
so he knew that land well. He knew
Yeah.
probably everything about it.
And I asked him, I seen him about 2 years ago, and I asked him about, does he remember, what does he remember? And he didn't kind of want to go the Bigfoot route, but
Mm-hmm.
he did remember the splashes, and then he remembers hitting the brakes, but he doesn't remember, like, kind of what he saw. That's kind of weird. I don't know what to make of that either.
Yeah, those big wolves, they could be the size of a calf, a little bigger, whatever, but you're saying this thing was massive, so it couldn't be, in my mind, it couldn't be a wolf. I would rule that out. If we're looking at it kind of logically, and you said it's as wide as a truck, jeez.
Yeah, it was like a '90s Pathfinder. Those old Nissan Pathfinders.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It was like at least that wide,
Wow.
and it was tall. Yeah, it just oof. It gives me chills. I just went back there, right? It gave me chills for a second.
And bears ain't, they're big, but not as big as something you're describing either in my mind. Maybe one of those Kodiak bears, but geez, those are pulling up in Alaska.
Yeah, I think all we have is black bear down there.
And they ain't that fast. You're saying it just kind of...
Oh, it was lightning. Wow. Gone.
Yeah, I would think it's, not that I'm prone to thinking everything out there is, Bigfoot or something strange, but that definitely sounds something like it, In my mind,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah, it definitely, like I said, I didn't realize any of it. Like, I didn't even think any of that until a couple of years ago as I was listening to these podcasts and different stories and stuff. And then, like, the light bulb went off. I was like, oh my God, that's what went down.
Wow. No, with my little thing, too, where I think I walked into that little ambush area where one was hunting because everything was quiet. I didn't know what to make of that for years, man. That happened in, let's see, 2004. It was just spring getting into summer of 2004. And where are we at now? That was 19 years ago. And maybe just this past, I don't know, 7 months? Past year, I guess it'd be. You could say within the past years when I finally made sense. Like, wait a minute now. There was more going on there. Because I never thought about it. I didn't give it two thoughts, to tell you the truth. And now that I look back on it, and my wife has a story about that. I'm going to get her on here too one of these days and have her tell her story. She was, paced by one, chased by one too. And in that same area where I was at is where it started. and she actually seen it. She's seen the thing. And I didn't get to see it, but it was so quiet there. I don't know, man. If anybody else has been around those things, I don't know if this happens to them, but something happened to my hearing too. Like I don't know. It's like, when you go on an airplane and there's like pressure in your ears. It's kind of like how it was.
Yes.
And everything was quiet, man. Like quiet. And it's really not that quiet down there. You hear a lot of animals, down in that area I'm talking about to medicine. There's a lot of, insects. There's just a lot of life down there. And
Right.
to even hear you could hear the river from where I was at. And even for that to go quiet, how?
And isn't it funny how, like you said, you didn't go Bigfoot in your mind at the time, but when you look back now, isn't it funny how you have that clear, great of a memory of that incident,
Yeah.
even though you weren't thinking that at the time, but look how that memory has stuck with you.
Well, it was kind of traumatic is why, I was really scared. I was scared of that, whatever happened there, because how it lured me into that area was it broke branches, right, from like 12 feet up. And they were green broke branches. And I studied them. I was hunting. I stepped over one at first. It was across the trail I was walking on, and I thought, wait a minute, why is that big branch there? I just like stopped and I just let go, because I was getting close to an area where I knew there's a lot of deer that hung out. I just totally let that, we call it being tactical in the Marines. I just let all my tactical stuff go, and I was like, wait a minute now. I put my rifle over my shoulder on the sling, and I'm just looking at this thing like, what the hell? I stopped snooping and pooping, and I'm just walking around all loud. I don't even care anymore because I was so curious about that thing. And when I looked, they were all broke in a trail, like in a line through the woods. And there's no trail there, but there was just all broke, like natural little clearings. But yeah, when I followed it, I just kept walking because I was so curious. Like, oh, the first one I looked at, I made sure that, maybe the neighbor didn't rope it and was breaking branches down there, just messing around, maybe testing his horse. I have no idea. I was trying to make sense of it, but I didn't see anything on there like that where it could have been broke. I knew the wind couldn't have done it because of the trees were about 30 feet high, and these were broke up about 12 feet high. And there's no way a man could do that. If it would take 3 men just like really, really bouncing and hanging on it, to do that. And I just couldn't explain it. That's why I was, stumped and looking at them all. And I start following them down, and sure enough, like it led me into this area where my rifle wasn't even, like I couldn't pull my rifle to aim in on anything. It was so narrow. There was so much brush.
They got pinched in.
Yeah, and when I look back, I always think, geez, it probably just would wait for a deer to come and just reach out and grab it, whatever. That's kind of the impression I get, because...
Now, the branches, did they stop where you were following them as they were broke? Now, when you got in that little pinched-in area, was there no more broke branches?
Exactly where they stopped. It was right there.
Wow.
In that little danger area,
creepy.
Yeah, that little bottleneck. That's where they stopped. And
so what'd you do?
Well, I got to the end of it, and I start thinking, because I wasn't even paying attention to my surroundings. I was looking at those trees down, mainly, And I was just walking, then I got to the point where I'm like, oh, shit. Because I backed up and my rifle was right there, man, and I was just, after that, I was everywhere I looked, my rifle looked in it, and I realized, like, there was something wrong with my ears. I couldn't hear. Like, everything was quiet. I got so spooked, man. I was so scared. I grew up in those woods, and nothing like that ever happened, ever. That's why it was so,
wow.
I don't know, jarring, I guess. Well, see, I want to say...
And you couldn't make heads or tails of it either, right?
To this day, well, when I seen that area, that danger, and I backed out of that, I backed out about 50 feet from it, and I kept staring at it, and at my nephews or kids, and they're always going down there swimming, and I thought, man, if there's something here, I gotta see what it is, and, we'll try to clear it to make sure that my nephews don't get hurt or something. I didn't know.
Wow, that's where you went, huh?
Yeah, I went around. I went all the way around this really bad area of rose hip bushes where, man, they were just sticking me everywhere, but it was the only way to get through that. But I stopped a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, I can't go this way. It's just too much. So I backed out, and I went all the way around out to this clearing, down on this fence line, and back up the other side of it. And I finally found where I was at, where I was looking into this place, and that's when I stumbled onto this weird trail that, like where I was walking, where they stopped in that little bottleneck, there was this really weird trail that I almost passed. Like, if you don't approach it from that one side, you'd miss it.
Gotcha.
Because it was in a circle. It was made in a circle, like into this all of this
creepy.
brush. Yeah, so it was hidden. Like, you only see it for a split second, and it's gone. But the trail, that's how the trail went. It was in a circle. It was circular. It made like this spiral back. So I started following it. But I didn't see any tracks on the ground. But I started following it because that was what was on the other side, that little pinch point. And so once I followed it back, it led into this really dark area of... It was like a hole in all of this brush. It almost seemed like a cave in the brush, like made out of the brush, and I wouldn't go in there, man. I was so scared, man. I couldn't go in there. I just couldn't. I finally backed out, backtracked all the way back around, and I never went back to hunting that area again. I just couldn't do it, man. I was trying to clear it, but I couldn't bring myself to go in there and do it. It was too scary, and it was so quiet.
what made you what gave the light bulb off when you were watching something or you listened to something and then you went, oh my gosh, that's what happened to me?
Well, I don't know. I mean, just knowing that place was so quiet.
Oh, your wife, and then your wife said that she saw one in the same spot, right?
From where the broke branches started.
Wow.
Is where she seen one. And
what was it doing?
Like it was like standing on this branch, like high up, about 12 feet up, standing on a branch where its arms were above its head, grabbing another branch, and it was rocking, making that whole freaking tree move.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was a smaller one. It was small. It wasn't like 7 feet, 8 feet. It was like about 5 feet. It was, but she said it was really, really strong. And when she looked at it, it looked at her, and she said it like kind of like pondered, like, should I go after her? What should I do here? And the interesting thing is we had gotten a fight that day, an argument, and I went to town, and she was out there all by herself.
Wow.
Yeah. And anyways, she went for a walk down there, just to clear her mind, she was saying. She's like, I was just kind of still feeling our argument, so I just went for a walk. But she got to the point down that little road where, it got quiet on her too, and that's when she started looking around, and she noticed it up there, and it started shaking that whole tree, then looking at her, And
it's the scary part, Rod, is how many times nobody looks up.
I know. Yeah, but when she seen it and it seen her and it kind of pondered, she just started running. She just broke off in a run back to that house on that road back up. And the thing, she said what scared her, what actually made her run after it was looking at her, let me go back, is when it was looking at her, kind of pondering if it should go after her, she said it stepped off that branch and fell to the ground. But when it did that, it didn't make any noise, and it was gone. She couldn't see it anymore. But the brush ain't that thick right there. You could see something down there, but that's just like it was. Wow. So she ran, and then she could hear it on the side of her chasing her, but it was in the brush. It wouldn't go on the road. It was just
still couldn't see it.
Yeah, she could. She gets all the way up to that house, and those dogs start coming. They hear her, and they start barking past her, and she thinks that the dog saved her, but I'm thinking to myself, those dogs are just as scared of those things, too. Well, anyways.
Yeah, right?
They come running, must have not knew what was behind her, must have thought it was, I don't know, other wild dog, something, but she ran up that thing, and they passed her, but as soon as she was still running to that house, them dogs turned around and were right with her. They didn't go down there.
What? Yeah. Well, at least they comforted her on the run home.
Yeah, dogs are scared of those things too. They act different too around them,
So. Yeah, and it sounds like they were keen on it, right? They picked it up.
Yeah, there was something that they seen and sensed or whatever.
Wow, but she couldn't see it the whole time, right?
Not when it was pacing her. She couldn't really see it. She could hear it though. But
right next to her?
Yeah, well, about 15 yards into the woods there. But the other thing too is that I go back to, let's see, when I was in high school, about around my senior year, when was that? I don't know. Boot leave in 95. Anyways, it was in the 90s, mid 90s somewhere. And I went with my dad down to the bottom there where all this took place, but it was a little south of this area. And we have a clearing down there, and the neighbor's got a clearing on the other side. Well, we went down there, and we had this little place where we'd build a fire, and yeah, I was young, and I'd drink beer anyways. But anyway, we were sitting down there, and I was sipping on one. I wasn't trying to get drunk. I was just drinking. I really didn't like how they tasted at that time. Anyways, I was just barely drinking it. But my dad wanted to visit me, and he was drinking. I just grabbed one just because Anyways, sitting there by that fire, and he said, "Hey, Rod," he says, "I was out here, I need to show you this." I was like, "What?" And he turned on his lights, his headlights that shine past the fire, over the fire and then into those woods. He said, "Come here, what do you make of this?" And you know what he showed me, man? He showed me one of those branches broke that I seen years later.
No way.
It's the first time I ever seen something like that, but I just wrote it off. At that time, I didn't really think too much about it, like at all.
What was your response?
I wonder how that happened. And he said, I don't know. He said, I always think about this and I can't figure it out myself. And he just couldn't figure it out. He said, but look how they're broke. He says, I don't understand this. And I told him.
At least he was honest, you know. He didn't try to like spin a tale or something. Well, I don't know. What is it, Dad? I don't know either. I was asking you.
Yeah, well, see, he's seen one, him and his girlfriend, too, down at the bridge, which would be further north of this area, about maybe a mile and a half down at the bridge. And they were walking down this. I was fishing above those cliffs, and they walked down below the cliffs and crossed the river. In the middle of the river, there was a tree, like a stump, kind of wedged. They sat on that to soak their feet. They just took their shoes, socks off, and he said he looked across, and there it was. It was up against that cliff wall, like standing up against it with its arms out to its sides, with its palms touching the cliff.
like trying to act like you can't see me.
Just all still, and it wouldn't move. He said, because he come back up he said, hey, Rod, we just seen a Bigfoot down there. I said, what? He said, yeah. I said, what was it doing? I said, where at? He said, right here. Well, I was kind of peeking over those cliffs, but you can't see from where I was at or where we were at. And I said, well, what did it do? He says, nothing. It just stared at us. I said, did it move? He said, just its eyes. He says, as we were walking out there, it's the only. I said, well, how'd you know? Was it kind of looking around at its head? He says, no, because it never took its eyes off me. It just stared at, me and Carol the whole time. But he said it didn't even move. Just his eyes moved.
Did he say like look how big it was?
Yeah, he said it was huge. He said about 8 feet tall. He says it was just big, and it was dark. It had black hair on it. He said it was big
and just stood there like a statue.
Yeah, just still, but this huge thing just standing there.
Wow.
Yeah, they're down in that area too.
I was about to say, man, it sounds like you're in a pretty hot area.
Well, see, we don't mess with it anymore. Like, I've been down there recently. We went down. I had to go in not too far from where I seen those broke branches. I had to meet my cousin down there for something. I guess kind of keep that private, but we were doing we went down and prayed and stuff. But anyways, that was the last time, and now it's really, really grown over. There's more trees. There's more brush. It's more thick.
Well, you know what else I just thought of that's kind of freaky about that, Rod, is, okay, you know this, okay, as a hunter, okay, so if they're leading prey with broke branches, like a little trail to lead you something to a choke point, well, deer aren't gonna look up, and why? You get where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I've thought about that. Weird. I've thought about that. Like, why would you put broke branches for a deer? Right. Deer ain't gonna care about that, or they're not gonna. Maybe it wasn't for the deer, but that little place would have been perfect for it to reach out and snatch something. Maybe it was for people. Jeez, I don't know, but I got the hell out of there. Well, I checked it a little bit, but I just couldn't. Man, I couldn't stay there. I just couldn't. It was too scary, man. Like, in a broad daylight, I was just scared though.
And it's not like you say those words too often either, right? Like where you get scared all of a sudden.
No, I walk around out there at night, and there's a lot of people that won't even do that. I'll go out there at night by myself sometimes, even walking around out there. I don't bother me. You hear all these stories about things happening out there, but still, it's just, I was never scared of it. But like I said, that was the only time that's ever happened, and I was, terrified. Wow. I was really, really scared. It's like being spooked. It's like when you're actually getting spooked by something and there's something bad around, like that fear that you get, it's almost to the point where you want to run and just, fight or flight. It's that type of fear that I was suppressing just to make sure. The only reason I was being brave was for my nephew, I wanted to make sure. They say bravery is love, love is bravery. That's all that kept me down there, man. Yeah.
Wow, that's a good story.
It was pretty intense. I'll never forget that. And like I said, that was in 2004, but I remember it like it was yesterday, man. It was, it's easy to remember things when you're scared like that. They kind of imprint on you,
Yeah, it does something with your brain. I'm sure it puts it in some kind of category where, like, kind of like either remember or learn or do something with this, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that was my only time, and like I said, I didn't see anything either. But looking back, I think that was
Right,
some because, well, all the things that line up, my wife's seen some, my dad's seen some, and him showing me that branch before, you know.
right. And the fact that it was up in the tree on a branch, so obviously that's kind of their thing.
And then jump down and make no noise and disappear. Wow, that
Yeah,
happens
that
too.
yeah, that
Yeah,
goes down a whole nother rabbit hole.
yeah. I don't know how what was it doing? How did it disappear? Did it like get down on its stomach? I mean, was it doing that weird little finger toe crawl thing on its stomach? I mean, how the hell?
Right.
And then finally
Well,
it started chasing her. Well, she couldn't see it because she was running, of course, and wasn't taking the time to look, but she could hear it. That's just
so
crazy.
speaking of like, okay, like yeah, like you can't see it, right? Well, all right. So I'm gonna go with number two, right? This story happened to me right here in my own home. I live about an hour north of New Orleans,
Hmm.
and my backyard has a little patch of woods, but this patch of woods runs like long ways along this highway, and 2 miles down the road is a state park. So I mean, it's wooded, but I'm not like in the woods per se, right?
Hmm.
Like on the outskirts. So all right, so I'm kind of into like alien, like looking out for UFOs and weird stuff like that. Like I was into like Dr. Stephen Greer. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he has like this weird group where they do like the CE5 stuff,
Yeah.
and then where they kind of like meditate, and then they send up like a mental road flare or something like that, like kind of like a mental image of where they are on the earth, and supposedly these UFOs or entities or stuff kind of respond. They were getting action with it, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, well, man, I'll try it, you know? And I'm not big into meditation at all, right? Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'll try it. So I was trying it. So I did it a few times. And I don't know if I was really getting any UFOs down here or anything, but it was fun. I was meditating and I was outside doing things. It was productive things I was doing, right?
Hmm.
So one night, and now mind you, I've been doing this for about a week, and now by spending hours outside behind the house, staring at nothing in the sky, I started hearing stuff in the woods. Like I swear, I thought there was a person back there, like spying on us or something. Like I could hear like walking, like somebody walking around back there.
Mm.
And I was like, but I could never. There was nothing like flashlights or anything. I would yell out like, nothing. So then I thought maybe it was just deer, or we get like hogs from time to time crawling and come tear out the yard and stuff. So I was thinking maybe it's something like that. So one night we're back there, and I'm back there with my girlfriend, and we're just down staring up at the sky, at stars, and here comes the bipedal stuff again. And I swear, Rod, this bipedal. It's not. I mean, it's the proverbial crunch, crunch,
Ooh.
crunch, right? Like deer or the hogs don't walk like that, right?
Yeah.
So now, about an hour or two earlier, my neighbor, not to the very next door to the right, but down at the end of the street on the corner, they got a couple dogs, and one's a little bit bigger dog, but one's like a little yipper. Well, this dog was yipping all night, and I was kind of aggravating me because I'm trying to star watch and look for aliens.
Yeah.
So this dog's yipping. Well, all of a sudden that bipedal stuff starts heading towards the yipping.
Oh,
And
geez.
it kind of like, it didn't dawn on me till it was getting close to the dog. And dude, next thing you know, by all intents and purposes, you hear that dog being murdered. Like, it was all you hear like it went from yipping to the whimpering, like
Oh.
it sounded, like the dog was getting, I don't know, it was dying. It was something was attacking. So my girlfriend starts running towards that direction and just yelling at thin air, "No, stop! Don't kill the dog!" Well, it does its thing for another couple seconds, and then it sounds like a freaking elephant leaving. I mean, just
Oh.
whatever that slow crunch. Well, it didn't leave like that. I mean, it left and it let everybody know it was leaving. I mean, it was weird. It just mowed everything down. But I never did see anything. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, did that just happen? And then, of course, my mind is going where I was like, no way. We're Southeast Louisiana. I don't know, Sasquatch down there.
Mm-hmm.
So weird night, and so we debated on whether to go to the neighbors and tell them what we just heard, right? But we didn't. Well, the next morning, we take a walk down there, and it's like early in the morning, and I see there's a kennel outside, like in the driveway, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no way. So a little bit later, my girlfriend calls over there, and we'll say the lady's Mary. Her name's Mary. So she calls Mary and says, hey, is everything okay? We kind of heard something last night, and we just wanted to make sure your dog okay. And she was like, wow, that's so weird that you called, because no, apparently they brought it was alive, but it was like in bad shape apparently. So they brought it to the vet, and the vet like put it down like almost immediately.
No. Yeah.
So the vet said it had massive internal bleeding. The front two legs were broken or paralyzed, and they think that it was having seizures all night. So, but no puncture wounds, no scratches, no blood. It was just, I don't know. What do you make of that one? But whatever it was, I heard that dog die, and the rhino in the woods. So my girlfriend doesn't want to just come out and say, we think Bigfoot killed your dog. So she's like, well, that's weird, and I'm so sorry. She was like, man, I wish you would have called or came over, no matter what time it was. And she says, my girlfriend kind of said we thought we heard somebody walking back there. Well, Mary has an older aunt that lives with her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in, I want to say, her late 70s. And she said, like 2 weeks before this, her aunt says, okay, so now their fence, that they back up to these same woods. Their fence is like a chain link fence, so you can see through it, right? So, a couple of weeks earlier, Mary's aunt, who's blind, okay, says, Mary, somebody's staring at us in those woods. And her aunt's like, what? She's like, yeah, my aunt was like, there's a 7-foot homeless man staring at us in the woods, right? Okay, so why did she say that, right? And she doesn't listen to the podcast I listen to, So she says this, and then it gets even weirder. So then she says, well, I guess they ended up just said come over. So my girlfriend goes down there and starts talking to her. Well, then she says, "Well, come look at this." So they walk around the back, and behind. Hello.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm here.
sorry. So they walk around the back, and in about I want to say about 20 yards behind that chain link fence
Mm-hmm.
is like a 4 foot weird teepee looking structure thing,
Oh.
like not like big enough for her to get in it,
Mm-hmm.
but what is it?
Yeah.
and she's got kids, and she says, I asked my kids if they made that, and they said no. And then we're scared of those woods. We don't even go in there and play. so, so we got a blind lady who senses a 7 foot homeless man staring at him.
Weird.
Where there's a TV structure, and about where that dog got murdered. so, so this is where it gets good. So I think. I'm on defense mode now, right? I'm sharpening sticks, Rod. I'm acting like I'm trouncing through the woods like Rambo, like I'm looking at crap. And so I start taking my phone, taking pictures with me, right? Like take the pictures, I start seeing all kind of weird stuff back there. Like it was weird, Rod. It's like they take or something takes these vines and branches and they weave it together and it makes like this weird stuff. They like kind of almost, I don't know how to describe it. I'll send you some pictures. It's weird. And then so I see the TV structure. I'm taking some pictures of it. And on my way back, I see this thing that looks like it looks like a den of some sort. Right? It's like a bunch of down trees, but it's the way they're kind of positioned. And then there's other stuff mixed all up in it. It was just creepy looking, right?
Yeah.
So I started getting that creepy vibe. So I just take a couple of pictures of it. And so I go back and sure enough, man, I look in the picture. And dude, first of all, I didn't see any of this when I took the picture. I mean, it could have been there. I was kind of creeped out and took off. But there's a deer up in the tree, like in between, like kind of forked in some branches, and it's got its like head twisted back. And I swear, you can see a biggie in the background, dude. Not like full, but you can see like a chicken wing, like an arm kind of behind the tree. So I know how this sounds and stuff. So I took that picture and sent it to all kind of people, like my dad, friends, and I wouldn't say anything about it first. So I'd say, hey, look at this picture, and call me back and tell me what you see. And like 9 out of 10 people were like, well, there's a deer in the tree. And I'm like, yes. Now then, nobody really. One guy pegged something behind it too, but everyone saw the deer immediately. Like, that's weird. What is that? And I'm like, right? I didn't see the deer, and I did go back there, but that was only because my dad. This is where it kind of gets interesting, like for me personally, because I asked my dad what to think about all this, right? So, because I'm sharpening sticks like Rambo, Rod? Like, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
So, I was like, Dad, what do you think? Honestly. And he says, Dorian, why don't you pray? Go back there. Sit down and pray. Ask for guidance or quiet,
Yeah.
That's what I would do. So, that thought had never occurred to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, I'll do this. I got this in me. So I bucked myself up one day, and I go back into Creepyville. I mean, it was like Blair Witch stuff back there. It's kind of crazy. So I sit down in the spot, and I'm at it. I'm just shut down, clear my mind. And so I had all these thoughts and ideas what I was going to ask or do. But I start getting all these like weird Polaroid type quick flashes like in your mind's eye, right?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like of the the land that I was sitting on, but it was like a long, long, long time ago, right?
Hmm.
And then this weird lady appears, and she's like pissed off and sad, and she's showing me pictures, like still shots of like all these animals like dying, and so I don't know, I start freaking out, and I open my eyes, and I freak out, and I just run home, like beeline, like run straight home, right?
Yeah.
So I go jump in the bathroom, and I just crank up the shower. So I just I just wanted to take a shower for some reason. So I look in the mirror, and Rod, I got hives all over me. Like I was broke out of hives. I'm crying. I'm like a shell of a guy. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so I take the shower, and I try to calm down. So I'm like, frick, what do you make of this? Like, who's the lady? Why am I crying? Nothing about Biggie, but what I took away from that, Rod, was I don't think it was bigger than Biggie, and I don't think my thoughts about him were very fair or nice, and I don't think he liked me trouncing around back there either. So I got a whole different outlook and approach to the whole subject now. Like I don't think it's just some monkey running around the woods. It just sent me in a little different direction. If you get my drift.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, the cool part is the neighbors. They're selling their house now.
They sold their house?
No, it's on the market.
Yeah, they don't want nothing to do with that.
No. But how cool is well, not cool, but the ant sensing something back there that's blind? There's something got to be with that, right?
Yeah,
what do you make of that?
I think they're able to sense more things. They say when you lose a sense of sight or hearing or whatever, the other senses kind of amplify and pick other things up. I don't doubt her one bit that she knew there was something around. And that woman though, that almost makes me wonder if it could be that lady they talk about that hangs around those Bigfoot too. I wonder if it could be her.
Oh yeah, the woman in white, right?
Yeah, could it be her?
Well, and then check this out. So like a week later, now I'm out. I'm done playing in the woods, but I was walking my dog, and I'm walking kind of by that corner house. So I take the left, and I'm going down the side street, and I'm looking behind our house, and I just saw some creepy little patch of woods, and it was right at twilight. So I took a couple pictures, and one of them didn't have a flash, and one of them did. And I'm not real sure which one the one that came out, but sure enough, and I didn't see it right at the time, but when I went home and looked at it, dude, Rod, there's a lady like poking from behind a tree, just the lady's face. I didn't even see it right. Yeah, my girlfriend looked. She's like, dude, look, there's a lady right there. And I looked. I was like, oh my god. I was like I said, I did see it right there, but I don't know what's up with that either.
Has any other neighbors or anybody that you know of noticed a strange woman around there?
Nobody's mentioned the woman, but the neighbor to my left thinks there's a homeless guy that walks around the woods.
Wow.
So I just laughed. I just went with it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being the weird dude on the block, Rod.
Jeez. Not all people see spirits either. That's another thing. And, for you to be able to see them, there's it's really strange. There's something up with that too, I think. I don't know
or
what.
sense it, right? Like maybe the ant sensed the being or whatever it was, just like it would be a spirit. Or maybe they take spirit form sometimes, right? Who knows, right?
Right. Yeah, that's...
Like your girlfriend it disappeared right in front of her.
Mm-hmm. Didn't make no noise when it landed, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. It's a good story, man. Thanks. Thanks for sharing them.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to ask you something, Rod. I saw something on TV today. Remember we talked about buffalo stones?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you were telling me about the big ones in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Well, I saw this thing on TV today, and they were talking about it was in Canada, and it was y'all's tribe, Blackfoot or Blackfeet,
Mm-hmm.
up there. Anyways, it was a giant old medicine wheel that's like 4,000 years old, and like there's a bunch of stones in the middle. Is that what you were talking about?
No, this oh geez, I want to say his name was Ryan Heavyhead. They were out looking for, because they were going out a while back here, and they were going out to all these different sites, finding different Blackfeet historical sites, and he's the one I want to say that eventually they were out in this area looking where it was rumored to be, or according to the old stories, and they could never find this big buffalo stone, and they just kept looking, and here finally it dawned on them that they were standing right there next to it is like like a big boulder, from what I understand.
Oh, I got you.
But no, that medicine wheel, that's at a whole different place too, from what I understand. I don't know very much about that. I remember hearing something about it a while back, but it's kind of a fuzzy memory. I wouldn't want to speak too much on that.
From what they said, several different peoples have added a little something to it, but it's like an old medicine wheel. It looks like has a bunch of rocks that are in the center,
Mm-hmm.
and then it makes like a big ring around it with some like alleys coming and out in like a spoke, like a rim of a car kind of thing.
I've always thought that was really interesting too, that symbol, that it's like basically like a cross with a circle around it. That symbol, you can find that in Kenya too. There's a tribe over there that they make those symbols too. I don't know, I just thought that was always pretty weird that
Yeah.
some tribe way the hell over there has something similar to ours.
And it's old. They dated it like at least 4,000 years old. So I thought that was just cool. And he did say Buffalo Stones, but he didn't know what he's talking about, I guess, right?
No, it could be. Like I said, I don't know really a lot about that one you're talking about. It could be that there's something, iniskims over there. I don't know.
That it started with an N, the where it was like I don't know. I don't want to speak, but it started with an N.
There's a lot of interesting places like that Okotoks National Park. They say that big rock that's there kind of broke up, started down here in the United States. There's a story that I know about that where Napi, the old guy that come around and taught us a lot of things, and didn't turn bad at the end, and the creator took him back. Well, at Lake Francis near a place called Valier, that's where they say the story with Napi and the rock started, and it chased him all the way up. He did a few things like gave it a hide, and he took it back, and all these. Anyways, that rock started chasing him from that lake, and he chased him all the way up into Canada, and that's when those nighthawks, they come and they exploded, basically chipped that rock away and kind of made it quit chasing him. But that park and that rock's there. That's the story about that rock. There's a lot of these interesting areas like that around, like that Ryan Heavyhead and them. They found a lot of these places where Napi was walking, a long time ago, and he would stop. He'd lay down in the grass, and he'd see his imprint in the grass, and he'd get up and he'd take rocks and he'd put it around his imprint of his body.
Wow.
Well, what's interesting about that is all these rocks that you find out there that are, basically outlining a human shape, they're all like 15 feet tall if that person was to stand up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's I think a lot of that stuff's really interesting. I'd like to see a lot of those myself. Like I said, my one, I guess, Indiana Jones, when I started thinking about that guy, and I was, like finding cool
Right.
things like that. I've always wanted to, somewhere up in Sweet Pine, up in Cutbank Canyon, just right past Red Blanket. Back in there's like this new camp area, from what I understand, just off the road. But further back, there's another campground way back there. But back there, I guess, is where Napi hid the buffalo from the people. And there was a cave back there. and that's where he hid them all. Well, the portal, the entrance to the cave is filled in, caved in, right? But what if someday somebody found that? I'd like to find it someday, just look for it. And I mean, I don't know how I'd go about digging it out, but get in there. I'm just saying.
And I'm sure there'd be regulations. You'd have to be really quiet about doing it too.
I mean, I'd just like to see that. I'd like to. What if somebody did stumble upon it someday, went down in there, and sure enough, there was a bunch of buffalo bones in there? That'd be really cool. I mean, because
and a 15-foot tall giant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's really interesting to think of, some of those things like that. It's really interesting. I don't know. I'd like to find it. But when are you gonna have time to trounce around?
Right. Right. And like you said, you'd have to be some heck of homework to try to dig, where that location is.
This guy named Wilbert Fish is who told me about that. He said his grandpa told him, and he knew where that portal was.
Well, you got a good starting spot, right?
I know. I just gotta find Wilbert. I don't know where Wilbert's at these days. Last I heard, he moved off to Res, but I have no idea where he's at. I'd like to go find him. He taught me a lot. He used to teach classes down at the college about different roots and stuff like that. And geez, he taught me and my brother a bunch of stuff down there. It's pretty cool. A lot of that stuff I still use today.
Yeah. Knowledgeable guy.
Yeah, he was. And he was the one that told me that. And that's always kind of stuck with me. And that was in 2003 he was talking about that. So it stuck with me. And I think about that. Like, geez, one of these days, what if somebody stumbles upon that?
I'm going to do
it. That'd be awesome. Fun. It'd be fun to go try to find that place.
Yes, sir.
Well, Dorian, let's end here. And thanks for your stories and everything. If we can do a part 2 with something else, I mean, let's go ahead and do it. And if you guys don't know, Dorian has his own podcast. It's called The Brave Awakenings. And him and I, have become pretty good friends over the past few months. And we talk quite a bit, share stories, and just whatever, we talk. I'll be at work and he hears me pounding my flooring in. He'll be at work, we'll talk for a little bit, or just whatever, we've become pretty good friends. Someday he's going to come up and sweat with us, if he can make it up this way. So whoever's listening, if my buddy's out there, you know who you are. We're going to go sweat with you. He lives across the mountains, but yeah, that's...
Well, I appreciate it, Rod. Man, it's been a great experience, man. I had a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Where else can they find Brave Awakenings at? Don't you have a website now, huh?
Yeah, well, I have a website up, but it's pretty much anywhere podcast players, you can pick it up.
All right. Well, guys, go check that guy out, too. I mean, there's a lot of interesting episodes he has. I listened to quite a few of them already. But, yeah, Brave Awakenings.
Well, thanks again, Rod. I had a great time, man.
All right. Thanks, Dorian.
Okay, Rod.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, that was Dorian. He's got a lot of good stuff on his podcast, too, if you guys want to see that or listen to that. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having patience for me on this episode. And I just appreciate all the support that I get from everybody, I get a lot of feedback. The podcast is starting to grow a little more, and I'm appreciative of all of it. It helps me to, stay motivated, keep going with it all, and I mean, it's really enjoyable, so I really don't mind doing it at all. I guess the challenge for me is finding time, because it's all self-produced. What do they call it? Executive produced by myself, and I'm sitting here doing it all, trying to make it all happen every couple of weeks here. But no, I really enjoy doing it, and if I had it my way, geez, I'd be releasing episodes every week. It's just not in the cards right now, I guess. But again, thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting us, and I appreciate y'all. Well, until next time.